Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Elise, and today I want to talk about why I think that Dave Ramsey isn't bad, he is just a little outdated. And since this channel is about finances, I'm only going to talk about him in a financial aspect and like what he decides to teach as far as his baby steps go. I'm not going to talk about stuff about him and his personal views and his personal life. There is stuff like that in the news about him, but I don't want that to cloud what he talks about in his profession, which is trying to help people get out of debt. So how I first learned about Dave Ramsey was in my late 20s when I was actually on an international trip with my friend. And throughout the time and space of the vacation, I noticed that she was just using cash. She's like, oh yeah, I'm just using cash because that's what Dave Ramsey teaches. That's one of the things he teaches to get out of debt. And I was like, oh, okay. Not knowing anything about him before that point, I respected it. It wasn't something that I was trying to do or knew to do instinctively. However, it made sense that if you have a certain amount of cash and you've committed to yourself that after that cash is spent up, you spend no more, it makes you think twice, and that helps you be better off financially in the long run. So that was pretty much it in one ear, out the other. We enjoyed our vacation. That was fine. I didn't come to actually like see him on YouTube until I was 30. And by that point, I was a few years further into paying off my debt, and I did find his teachings helpful. So for a brief synopsis of like why he felt the need to even start his career in helping other people is that Dave Ramsey was a millionaire by the time he was, I believe, 26. However, very shortly after that, he lost all his money because the banking system had changed. I don't know the specifics, but regardless, I think he was over leveraged and he ended up losing it all. Sent him into the worst probably of depression and the worst of feeling because he had a family to take care of and he felt like he failed them. So he committed to himself to rebuilding himself financially, to getting his family better off for their future. And in doing that, he decided to teach others how to do the same thing once he found a successful way to do it. And I believe he started teaching couples at local churches, and it grew from there. And the Dave Ramsey we know now has a Dave Ramsey show on YouTube. At minimum, he may have a show somewhere else. He might have like a podcast or something. And he also has this app called the Every Dollar app that helps you trace literally every dollar that you're spending. So that's how people probably know him today. I do also think that he writes a lot of books. But in part of his teaching is that he has several baby steps that he suggests that you follow to get out of financial debt. And he's very stringent on that. And that's something some people don't care for, but honestly, he's a no-nonsense person, and I can respect no-nonsense people because I have an aspect of myself being no-nonsense as well. Some staple key points that he has about getting out of financial debt is that I particularly remember is that he suggests you only have a $1,000 emergency fund, and some people suggest you should have more, but he's like, if you have more, you're not really committed because you are not paying off your debt really fast. You only need $1,000. He says most emergencies can be handled with $1,000, point blank period. Once you have that $1,000, you're supposed to throw everything at your debt. He does the snowball method, I believe, where you throw all the money, extra money after you have that $1,000 and get out of credit card debt, get out of consumer debt, which is like your car, and get out of student debt. That's what he is into. And also, he also doesn't think you should buy an investment property unless you pay for it cash. And he says that because at the point where you're even thinking about getting an investment property, you should already be outside of debt. If you're not, he's like, don't even think about that because you're not at that place. You don't have that financial position to do that. And he's like, to people, naysayers who say, well, that's not smart because you can leverage debt. He doesn't believe in leveraging debt. He doesn't believe in having any debt at all. So those are some things that I particularly remember. There are 7 baby steps, but those are the things that I remember, that it's $1,000 emergency fund only. You pay off all your debt using the debt snowball method. And if you want an investment property, you need to pay for it cash. On this front, that seems a little crazy, and I can understand that. But also, in that same token, if you follow that way, there's no way you can be in financial ruin. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but he's not absolutely wrong. He actually has a point there. Looking back, I do not think he is wrong. However, I found for my life personally, there was another way to do it and still keep joy. I say that because I do think his baby steps are successful in getting to the goal, which is financial freedom, but I don't think it's successful in bringing joy and enjoying life. And in my own experience, when I did find that I was going really hard and paying off my debt, which I think there was a whole year where I went really hard, a whole year out of 9 years. So it wasn't a long time, but I realized after that year, I couldn't do it anymore. And I'm going to tell you why. But for a whole year, I put all my money to my debt to the point, and it was extreme because there was a point where I had vacation. Like, I think I had like a whole week vacation. I didn't take the vacation because my job at the time would let me cash it out. So I took that $2,000 that I would have gotten paid for that week and put it into my debt payoff. However, once that year ended, I find myself kind of in a low place. I was like, I'm not experiencing life though. And I know in the beginning of my career, when I was going on $4,000 vacations by myself or sometimes with other people, and I wasn't happy about that, so I decided to get stricter. Now I was on the other extreme where I wasn't paying anything, and I realized that wasn't leading me anywhere either, and that I could do both. I can chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. I can pay off my debt in a healthy manner and still enjoy my life. And that's the route that I went with, and that's why ultimately I would listen to Dave Ramsey on YouTube as I was driving or doing stuff around the house just to keep my mind in a financial healthy space. But I knew I wasn't going to take his advice. And there are sometimes I'm like, I mean, good for them, but I'm not doing that. And I, throughout time and space, could see that I was still making progress. So it was okay for me. After that year where I realized I could not just be extreme with paying off my debt, I decided that I was going to pay myself every paycheck, which meant that, and it was in a couple things. I was going to pay myself and put some money into my emergency fund. Even if it was $20, I was going to do that. I was going to put some money into my retirement fund because, number one, from day one, it did not make sense to me to put all my money to my debt. I have always put something into my retirement because, like a lot of people, if I go to these people's job every week, I want to have something to save for it in the future. And then another thing is that if I were to ever do an investment property, I am not paying for it cash unless I already got it like that. But once upon I already have it like that, I'll be on like my 15th investment property. But for my first one, I'm going to leverage that because I've learned, and I've talked about it in some other videos, leveraging debt can be good if you use it smart and you're not over leveraged. So I think for me, this is an arbitrary number, but I would never over leverage myself above more than 30% of what my net worth is. So if I can get an investment property with that 25% debt, I'm just going to do that and pay it off slowly because it's not going to be something that I can't handle financially with the monthly payments. I do think that his advice was suited for people when he created it, which is in the late 80s and the late 90s. So I'm not going to begrudge him because he created it at that time and he has decided, whether he's stubborn or not, that he's going to stick to it, which I don't know. Sometimes you got to admit when you're wrong. But even if you don't, his particular advice is not bad. It is just a little outdated because that was 35 to 40 years ago now. We are in a different time, and then just the cost of living is more expensive. So the way he has designed his baby steps, it's not necessarily conducive to today's time. That's it. He's not right. He's not wrong. It's just a little outdated. And I say that because the cost of living now is much more expensive than it was in the late 80s and the early 90s. Housing is more expensive. To getting a car is more expensive. Student loan amounts are more expensive. And job security is lower. That part particularly is key. Job security is lower. It's not like you could be at a job and stay there for 30 years. Also, in the last 25 years, unlike any other time in history, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we have experienced financial trauma like nobody else. In 2001, we had 9/11, so that caused some rockiness in the financial area. But it was like a little bloop, nothing too big. 2008 was when the tsunami came and we had the big financial crisis. That took a while for people to recover from. Then we got 2020, where we had a large recession, not quite 2008, but it was pretty bad amongst all the other things that was going on in 2020. And now in 2024, I would say we're having like a cost of living crisis. It's not getting necessarily better. People are fighting for their lives to stay above water financially. So in today's day and age where we've had all this financial trauma, I don't think Dave Ramsey's takes on how to go about getting out of debt is for today. Thank God there are other people that you can bounce ideas off of. And like me, I take ideas from everybody because personal finance is personal and you have to personalize it for yourself. And I just think we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. And the other people that I have listened to and gotten advice from kind of allude to that. They're like, you can be financially smart, but also leave time for emergencies, leave time for leisure. Because we got to learn how to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time and live our lives and get out of financial debt. But again, there's a balance of we could die tomorrow, and then what is it all for? We were spending our whole lives paying off debt. That's not how we do it in 2024. So I don't think he's bad. I just think you should take it with a grain of salt and not just follow one person. Look at several other people and combine it into personally what you think fits best for you in your lifetime at the moment. Because in 5 years it can change. And then proceed from there. Let me know what y'all think in the comments, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.